The year 1914, Franz Ferdinand was brutally murdered by a Serbian nationalist. Due to complications with the relationships between countries, pretty much all of Europe was pulled into the war, beginning World War I. If anything was achieved through the war, people have obviously gotten better at killing each other.
World War I is widely known for its use of trench warfare. However, the tactic was actually created in the 17th century by French military engineer Sébastien de WW1. It was used all throughout history, even in the Civil War. In World War I, trenches ran from the Belgian coast to northeastern France all the way to Switzerland. Most trenches began as hastily made foxholes, which were then connected by crawl trenches, eventually becoming more permanent. Trenches, which often ran in a zigzag pattern so one could shoot down them, contained command posts, first aid stations, and even kitchens. After the development of machine guns and heavy artillery, a lot of soldiers welcomed the idea of trenches. However, the abysmal conditions led a lot of men to get trench foot, lice, and rats ran rampant.
Chemical warfare was a new class of warfare introduced in World War I and was widely adopted by both sides of the war. These new weapons were developed to try to incapacitate and kill enemy soldiers. These chemical weapons were first adopted by the French in the autumn of 1914. They used tear gas on enemy soldiers, which had marginal effects on the troops and hardly affected warfare. The next major use of chemical weapons was with the German soldiers in the April of 1915. 170 tons of chlorine gas were used by the German soldiers, which caused around 5,000 deaths. Over the next few years, agents such as phosgene, mustard gas, and organic arsenic compounds were quickly introduced into fighting. These chemical weapons were very irritating to the skin, eyes, and the respiratory tract. They continued to develop more weapons throughout the war, but did not have any major successes. These chemical weapons did have many unforeseen effects on the soldiers. They had both chronic and long-term effects, which caused many deaths after the war.
Victory in the battlefield came from the effective use of weapons. The Lewis gun was introduced in 1915 by the British. While old machine guns were heavy and hard to wield, new machine guns were light and could be carried around. Also, remember that little knife thing on the top of the gun? They took that off because it got the soldiers stuck to the dead body they were trying to kill.
Yeah.
The planes were also introduced in World War I. There are two types of planes, the reconnaissance plane and the fighter plane. The reconnaissance plane was used to creep on enemies to see where they were and collect imagery. Fire planes were used to keep the reconnaissance planes safe. They also were used in dogfights and shot at each other. Tanks were the last technological advancement in World War I. At first, there was no cooperation whatsoever between the tank and the artillery. But once their power was harnessed, they became the real MVP of World War I.
During World War I, techniques and weapons used for war were changed to be able to kill more people at faster rates and in newly developed ways. If military leaders were quicker to adapt their old-fashioned techniques, more lives could have been saved. Nevertheless, World War I changed the nature of warfare forever, affecting soldiers and civilians alike today.
They also used grenades.